Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court with Krissy. From the chopper to the coppers. I have a feeling you're going to like this. And it's not just because Frosty the Snowman, yes, Frosty, helped crack the Buckin case. And that's Buckin with a B. Bravo, Buckin. YouTube captions, don't screw that up. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
All rise, please.
Good afternoon. Please be seated. I'll call the case of People versus Roger Buckin. Good afternoon, sir. And that is file 3121 of 2024. Ms. Bosco is here on behalf of the defendant, and Ms. Mogenberg on behalf of the people. Are both parties ready to begin?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then Ms. Mogenberg, call your first witness.
Thank you. People call Derek Rocky.
All right, before you get seated there, Mr. Rocky, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat. And if you could start by telling us your first and last names and spell them both.
Yes. First name Derek, E-E-R-R-I-C-K. Last name Rocky, R-O-C-K-E-Y.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Mogenberg.
Thank you. Tell us how you're employed.
Yes, I'm employed by the Coast Guard, stationed here in Heritage in Traverse City.
All right. And how long have you been in Traverse City?
I've been here since 2021.
All right. And what is your title with the Coast Guard?
So I'm a helicopter pilot for the Coast Guard and also an instructor pilot.
I want to draw your attention to December 12th of last year, just around 7 o'clock in the evening. Can you tell us where you were and what you were doing at that time?
Yes, we were out on a training mission, myself and the two other individuals in the aircraft. We had gone out to East Bay to conduct training with we have a contract boat that we do training with on an annual basis. And then we came back to Traverse City to drop off one of our crew members and then continue training for one of our additional pilots. And we were out doing training at the airport.
What happened when you came back into Traverse City?
So we landed, so we dropped off one crew member, and then our first lap in the traffic pattern at the airport, we were on the south side of the airport over Costco, in the vicinity of the Costco parking lot area. When I noticed a green reflection coming into the cockpit on the left side of the aircraft, I was sitting in the right seat at the time. So I said, I think we're being lasered or lased, at which point in time we shifted our operations.
Okay. And do you recall what color that, sorry.
It was green.
Is that already?
It was green, and the first indication was because the roof is glass, we could see the reflection.
Okay. And did you actually make visual contact with that laser?
Initially, no. We were in the process of doing a simulated emergency, so the aircraft was in a degraded state. So we fixed that, cleaned up everything, and then we notified the air traffic control tower. And as we were continuing to come back to land, is when the laser again illuminated the aircraft and we began to see where it was coming from the ground.
Okay. And were you able to locate where it was coming from?
We were, so we made the initial notification air traffic control, at which point in time we went to where we assumed we could see the origin of the laser was coming from the ground. We did one orbit around that location, and the crew member in the back actually noted a Christmas decoration and made a landmark reference to that and said, it appears to be coming from approximately 4 houses east of where this snowman decoration was.
Okay. And when you say snowman decoration, like one of the big.
It appears like it was a large inflatable or some kind of lawn decoration. It was readily visible from the aircraft.
And at any point, did you, did the lasers hit your eyes?
It did. So typically our policy is whenever the aircraft is hit with a laser, we usually tell the crew to look the opposite direction. In this instance, as we were coming back to the airport is when the first strike happened in my right eye, at which point in time we decided to actually go find it. And then it happened 1 or 2 more times as well, just by sweeping through the aircraft cockpit.
And did you have to get medically checked out?
I did. I notified our Coast Guard medical personnel. They advised me to go to urgent care at Munson Medical Center. And I did seek medical care. There was no permanent temporary damage. The only issue was there was initial kind of dull eye pain in the right eye.
Thank you. I have no additional questions. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bosco.
Okay, you said that there was a green laser that came into the helicopter, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe what that looks like?
The best approximation I can give you is it's, from my perspective, it's like a green flash initially. That was the first indication we had. After that, the second kind of incident with the laser strike in the same flight was we could actually see the green beam coming from the ground, and then we could also see the green light source on the ground as well.
And can you elaborate a little bit more by the green light source?
The best approximation I can give is it's like green, almost pinpoint. It was a green light that was visible on the ground, and it was tracking the aircraft as we were flying.
Okay. And you said one of your passengers was the one that noticed the Christmas decoration, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, so our crew member in the back, qualified flight mechanic, was the one who noticed you could see the laser and also noticed the snowman.
And did you see where the laser was coming from?
So initially it appeared to be in the front of the house. I don't know the address. It appeared to be from the front of the house, and then as we moved closer to the origin, it appeared to go to the backyard of the house.
So you could see someone, an individual holding a laser or moving with the laser?
No, could not see the actual individual holding laser. We could just see, like I said, that point of light moving.
Okay, so the light was moving, not necessarily a human holding it. Would that be accurate?
Yes, correct.
So did you see any people around the laser?
I did not, predominantly because that laser is so bright, it kind of blinds you a little bit. But it does cause some temporary blindness or at least distraction.
From when you were in the air, can you describe the house that it was coming from?
Because it's a year ago, I don't recall. I do remember there being a car on the side of the house, but I couldn't tell you the details of the house at this time.
On which side of the house?
I don't remember at this time.
Do you recall what vehicle or what car was there?
If I remember, don't recall. Yes. No.
What about, were there any cars in the driveway of the house?
Yes.
So there was a car in the driveway and a car on the side of the house?
There was a vehicle, so from my perspective, it appeared that the vehicle was on the side of the house. I don't know if that was a driveway.
Do you recall the color of the car?
I do not, it was dark. I wasn't able to see it from 1,000 feet in the air.
Could you give a little bit more description? Was it a truck? Was it a car? Was it a large SUV?
If I had to give an approximation, it would be either a sedan or some kind of SUV or maybe a van. I'm not sure.
What about, do you recall any details about what trees or fences would have been around the house?
I don't.
And can you describe again how you located where the laser was coming from based on the Christmas decorations?
Yes, so the crew member in the back was the one who identified the location of the decoration, and so he was the one who called it out. He actually drew a diagram on a napkin, I believe. It was a rudimentary diagram, but he was the one who noted the snowman as we were doing the orbit of the location, and he actually counted down the houses. And so he said it was 4 houses to the right, or which would have been to the east of that decoration.
And you said you were on the right side of the helicopter
Correct.
and it came in through the left side?
Initially through the left side, and then as we turned towards it, it was the entire front of the aircraft.
And do you recall exactly what time this occurred?
I couldn't give you the exact time. I can give you an approximation. Say 7 p.m. to 7:10, but I couldn't tell you the exact time.
And how long did the overall incident where you, from the moment you first noticed the laser until when you turned and left to go back to the airport, how long was that time?
I don't know the exact time. I'd say less than 10 minutes, but I don't know exactly how long it was.
And how high in the air would you estimate that you were?
We were anywhere between 800 and 1,000 feet above the ground at the time.
Is there any sort of tracking data on the helicopter that would be able to give the exact height of the helicopter at that time?
There's ADSB data. I don't know. We don't know where you get that for recording altitudes and things, but that's the system is called ADSB.
Do you recall seeing any other individuals? I know you said you couldn't see the person holding the laser, but was there anyone else around?
Not that I'm aware of. Unfortunately, for 1,000 feet, it was dark. It was kind of hard to see anything that minute of a detail.
And does the helicopter record like a view of where the helicopter's flying?
It records audio, and it does record some video. Typically, there's an in-cabin camera we have, as well as a camera on the side that looks straight down. There is also audio recording from the cockpit.
Would that data be preserved, do you know?
I believe it was. We were contacted by the Coast Guard Investigative Services, and I believe they retrieved it. I couldn't speak for them, though. I don't know exactly what they still do or don't have.
As far as
Ms. Bosco, if you'd like to have a conversation in the vestibule, that would be fine. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, Ms. Bosco, do you have any additional questions for this witness? Go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned at one point that the helicopter was flying above Costco. Do you recall what altitude it was at that time?
I don't recall directly. We typically fly at 1,000 feet. That's the standard traffic pattern for the airport, and so we typically try to follow that.
Okay. And back to the snowman decoration. Was the determination of where the laser was coming on based solely on the location of the Christmas decoration that you could see?
No, the initial determination was based on the fact that we could still see the laser. Even as we were over the neighborhood in question, the laser was still illuminating the aircraft. The best description we could provide to air traffic control and to the authorities was the snowman as a reference point, saying the snowman's in this front yard. If you go 4 houses down from a house with the snowman, we believe that's where it's coming from.
Okay, and can you describe what the snowman looked like?
I cannot. I did not see it. The crew member in the back was the one who actually identified it. I don't actually know what it looked like. I was just told it was a large snowman decoration.
And he said it was approximately 4 houses to the east of the snowman?
Correct. Yeah, he believed it was 4 houses east of the house with the snowman.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Mogenberg, do you have any additional questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor, thank
All
you.
right, you may step down, sir.
Your Honor, may this witness be excused?
Any objection, Ms. Bosco?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then you are excused, thank you. And you're also welcome to remain in the courtroom if you wish, okay? Next witness, Ms. Mogenberg.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Reverend Josh Marston.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. If you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and have a seat.
Your Honor, can we ask Mr. Rocky to leave the courtroom just to maintain sequestration of witnesses for trial purposes?
Okay,
He has been excused for the purpose of this hearing, and he is the victim, so he's entitled to remain in the courtroom.
well, that was my main concern, is that Mr. Rocky is an alleged victim in this case, and the Crime Victims' Rights Act would ordinarily require the court to allow any victim to remain in the courtroom. And it seems to me that he's already given his testimony. So this would be concern about future testimony at a trial or something?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, can you give me a specific reason why you think that it's important that a victim in this case, an alleged victim, not hear the testimony of this witness in particular?
Yes, Your Honor. There were quite a few questions where I asked and he did not remember or recall the answer to. I just would not want him listening to testimony being given by the officers to implant or cause him to remember something that he otherwise would not have remembered.
Okay, response, Ms. Mogenberg?
Your Honor, the questions that he said he didn't recall were things about the exact time of the incident, and the others were, the nature of the vehicle that was parked near the car and what he could see from 1,000 feet out. I don't know that there's anything that this officer would testify to that, it's going to help in that. Additionally, I think that our Coast Guard pilot is capable of being instructed if in a further court hearing to testify to what he knows personally and not to what he's heard others talk about. So.
All right, so I am going to deny the request. This court should be very concerned about any sequestration of an alleged victim. And in this case, the concern is that the testimony may be suggestive of answers to this witness. The fact is, the witness has already testified he doesn't remember some of the details of what happened. That is on the record. We'll have a transcript of that. And if something were to change, I suppose sometimes people do remember things after they've heard someone else mention that something happened. I don't see that even as an attempt to implant or otherwise suggest something to a potential witness. If Ms. Mogenberg wanted to ask her witnesses about details of the police report to try to refresh their memory, she could do that. And so anyhow, primarily because I'm concerned about excluding a potential or a alleged victim in the case, I'm going to deny the objection. Okay. So go ahead, Ms. Mogenberg.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Joshua Morrissey.
And Your Honor, I apologize. Did you swear him in? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I
thank
did,
you.
yeah.
Please spell your last name for the record.
Pomorski.
Thank you. And can you tell us, well, you're employed at the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office, correct?
Correct.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
I've been with the Sheriff's Office for a year tomorrow, and then in law enforcement for 4.5 years.
And I want to draw your attention to close to a year ago today, December 12th of last year. Can you describe what shift you were working?
Yeah, I was working afternoon, so 2 to midnight.
And you were working with an FTO at the time, is that correct?
That's correct, that'd be Leech.
And just around 7 o'clock or a little after 7 o'clock, you received a call, is that right?
That is correct, yeah, 7:12.
And what was the nature of that?
We were dispatched to a suspicious situation in the area of Pine Drive. We were dispatched to the air traffic control tower. Said that the Coast Guard had reported a green laser being shined at the helicopter. Furthermore, they noted that the Coast Guard noted a
inflatable snowman in the front yard of one of the residences, and they were able to count 4 residents to the east of that snowman as to where they believed that the light was coming from. They also were able to, according to dispatch and information they received from the air traffic control tower, that the Coast Guard is able to verify it via Google Maps.
Sorry.
They were able to verify that address via Google Maps or the drawing of a map.
Okay, thank you. And so what did you do with that information?
So we contacted the air traffic control tower, who gave us very little information, just stated that the light had been shined to Coast Guard that was reported to him, and that the Coast Guard was now on the ground level actively driving around trying to locate the residents.
So what did you do?
So then we were provided with the Mr. Rocky's, the pilot, with his phone number from the air traffic control tower. Deputy Leech contacted him, left a voicemail. And then we proceeded to that area where we began looking for anything that matched the information as provided by the pilots. We did notice the inflatable snowman, and I would like to note that there was only 1 residence on that entire road from east end to west end that had an inflatable snowman. I went 4 houses east of that inflatable snowman and noted mentally the number. We then proceeded back towards 4 Mile to had to brainstorm a little bit when we were then approached by the pilot and his 2 crew members in his vehicle.
So you met with them, and then after discussing with them, what did you do?
So after discussing with them, taking a statement from them, then we then proceeded back to the residence with Deputy Bradley, and the 3 of us attempted to make contact with the residents.
And this resident on Pine Street that's in Grand Traverse County.
That's correct.
Were you able to make contact with anyone in the residence?
We did. We made contact with a male, probably in his 50s or 60s, at the front door.
Do you see that male in the courtroom?
I did.
And just for the record, would you point out where he's sitting?
He's sitting right next to the other counsel.
Your Honor, I ask that the record reflects that he has identified the defendant in this case.
It will.
Thank you. And obviously you didn't know his, you didn't have his identification, his name at the time, but do you now know who that is?
Yes, his name is Roger Bucket. I believe I said that correctly.
And did you have an opportunity at that point to speak to Mr. Bucket about why you were at his residence?
We did.
And what was his response?
He asked us why we were there. I asked him if he wanted to step outside and speak with us. I also asked him for his name, at least a first name, so I could properly address him. He refused to give us any kind of identifying information. Deputy Leech had kind of stepped in and then asked him about the green laser and who had the laser. He said he didn't have one. I asked him who was shining the light at the helicopter. Again, he denied these allegations. He said he used to have a laser, a green one, but it had been about 3 years since he had one because it was broken, and he didn't know where it was. Then during our conversation, some point in that conversation, he said that he had just got home from a job because he worked for, and he was out. Don't quote me, I believe he was fixing a furnace. However, Deputy Leech asked him multiple times if he could, contact his boss or if he had some way to confirm that he wasn't home within that time frame, which he refused to do. And then he also advised us that the night prior, he had seen his neighbor, which would be one house to his east, had a green light that he quoted as having like a pattern, almost like a snowflake pattern or something. And then Deputy Leech advised him that they already kind of ruled that out.
What did you do at that point? You weren't getting anywhere with the suspect. What did you, Deputy Leech, do at that point?
We kept trying to just ask him about verifying that he'd been at the job site and about the laser, which he later backed into his house and closed his door and refused to speak with us. And then an audible locking sound was heard as he locked the door.
What did you do at that point?
We then walked away, left his property, and then through law enforcement databases attempted to identify the subject, which we did.
And what was your next step?
After that, we went back to the department, specifically our recreational vehicle building, where we then began to draft a search warrant.
you're able to obtain the search warrant that night, is that correct?
That is correct.
And who went, well, did you go back that same night then to execute the search warrant?
Correct. I believe it was right around midnight when we executed the search warrant.
And who was with you when you did that, or how many deputies?
Yeah, there were 6 of us. It would have been Sergeant Roberts, myself, Deputy Leech, Deputy King, Deputy Harold, and Deputy Bradley.
And did you have any further contact with the defendant that night?
I just overheard contact between Deputy Leech and Sergeant Roberts when they spoke with him while we were serving the search warrant.
Okay, and you were not, well, you're aware that there was a laser that was located, is that correct?
That's correct.
But that you were not in the home when that happened, is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I was outside searching an outbuilding when I overheard radio traffic asking us to come back in because something had been located.
When you came back in the house, what did you see?
I don't recall which deputy it was, but somebody on scene advised me that they had found, I believe they said Deputy Bradley found them, but that they had found 2 laser devices in the trash can or the trash bag next to a piece of furniture, like in the kitchen area. And then I observed those as being approximately 6 inches long. They were silver devices that one emitted a bright green light and one a dull red light, but they were located with the batteries not in them.
Okay, were there batteries somewhere else in the kitchen then that?
Yeah, it eventually was relayed to deputies on scene by Mr. Buchan that the batteries were kept in a cabinet, kind of like, I guess to describe when we came in, the door to the left was like the kitchen table, and then there was, Mr. Buchan was kind of sitting by the middle or the back side of the table there, and then above that was a cupboard, and they were up in the cupboard somewhere behind that, I guess.
And the 2 laser lights were located in the garbage, in the kitchen.
Correct, without the batteries, yeah.
Okay,
And
and did deputies have to dig through the entire bag to get to the?
I believe I was advised that they were at the bottom of the garbage bag, but I can't.
Okay,
sure.
you weren't in the kitchen for that.
That's correct.
Okay, Your Honor, I have no further questions of this witness.
Hey, Ms. Bosco.
You go back to your initial contact with Mr. Buchan. What was initially asked to him? What questions did you ask?
So like at our initial contact, the very first time,
Yes.
so like I said, I asked him, he knew why we were there, and I think his response was, "What's up?" or something along those lines. I began to ask him about the incident, and then that's when Deputy Leech kind of interjected in the conversation and asked him where the green laser was and who was shining the green laser at the helicopter. And then I asked him who shined the light at the helicopter.
Okay, so who brought up the fact that there was an incident involving a green laser first?
I now know that that was Deputy Leech.
Well, and why do you say I now know that?
I now know that because I did not initially hear that while I was on scene, which is why that's reflected as such in the report. And then reviewing my body camera footage is when I was able to hear Deputy Leech ask that.
And you said that you were not in the house when the lasers were found?
That's correct.
Approximately how long was it before you came into the house after the lasers were found?
Maybe 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I'd say less than 5. It was in the middle of searching or actively doing something outside.
And when you first came inside and you saw the lasers, were they working at that point?
They were not. They did not have any batteries in them at that time.
And to your knowledge, was there anything that was done to the lasers besides putting batteries in them?
No.
Nothing at all?
As in,
Did anyone have to do anything to the lasers to make them work other than put batteries in them?
No, I took the batteries that were located in the cabinet that I described, I put those inside, and then the green one started to work. And then I think we had to turn the lens or something on the red one, because the red one was very, very dull, the red one was very hard to see. But the green one, as soon as the batteries went on, I believe it started working. I would like to note that it did have an adjustable lens on it too, which paired like the control the beam.
Both the green and the red did, or just the green?
Yeah, they're the same thing. Look exactly the same.
And when Mr. Buchan told you that he had seen his neighbor outside the night before, did you ever follow up on that?
We did the following day.
And what happened when you went there?
Yeah, so we made contact with a male, I believe his name was Danny Leisure. Danny told us he did have a laser, which he willingly turned over to us. He said at approximately 8 p.m. that the night prior.
I'm gonna object for hearsay.
Response, Ms. Bosco. It does appear to be hearsay.
Yeah, I don't. Did you obtain the laser that Danny Leisure had?
We did.
And what kind of laser was that?
It was like a small, kind of resembled like a pen, like 6 inches long, black laser that emitted not a single beam, but like a pattern, like multiple different points. And then you can turn it and like the pattern kind of changed, but did not have a single beam.
And have you tested how far that Mr. Leisure's laser beam, how far of a distance you could see it from?
I didn't measure it, but I did take my work phone and I turned on the camera and set up the camera and maybe I don't know the distance, shined the laser at it.
And could your phone see it?
You could see multiple different green points, not just one, multiple different ones.
Where's Mr. Leisure's laser beam currently located?
In evidence. Should be
It's still in evidence? And you mentioned that you had seen an inflatable snowman and that it was the only one in the entire neighborhood, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall what that snowman looks like?
I don't, other than the fact that it was one of the inflatable ones,
Do you recall the address of where it was located?
other than being exactly 4 residences to the west, I don't know the numbers. I should say 4 residences to the west of Mr. Buchan's address.
So if you were shown a picture of that snowman, you wouldn't be able to confirm if it was the correct one or not?
I can't.
And what happened after you went inside, after they told you that they had found lasers?
When they told me over the radio,
Yes.
went inside, that's when they presented the lasers to me. Mr. Buchan was adamant that the lasers didn't work. Then the batteries were put in them. It was demonstrated to him that they did work, and he still advised Deputy Leech and Sergeant Roberts that the lasers didn't work, and that it must have been his neighbor next door, Mr. Leisure, who was shining the laser helicopter.
And do you have body camera footage of your interaction with Mr. Leisure?
Yes.
And how many times did you have any interactions or interviews with him?
I believe just the once. He may come back and follow up a second time, but I don't recall.
And did anyone ever attempt to point Mr. Leisure's laser directly into the air at an object to see if it could reach a height that would have been similar to where the helicopter was flying that night?
No, I feel like being safe. That's why we set up my phone and directed it straight on an object, so we didn't have to worry about any objects in the sky being shined.
And approximately how far was your phone?
Again, I don't recall.
Can, just like 15 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet?
All I can attest to is that I set it up on a post at what is now the old Blair Fire Station 5, or the Blair Township Hall. Went across the parking lot and then over the fence into the park that's right there and set it up, and I can't tell you how far that is.
And so based on the fact that it looked like multiple laser beams on your phone, is there any way to determine, or did you test what it would look like a human actually looking at that laser from a distance?
I don't know if there's any way to do that. That was the point of setting up my phone to see what the camera would record.
But it could be different than what a human eye would see. Is that correct?
I'm not an expert. I don't think I can testify to that, but there's no way to test that, I think, without anybody having any kind of damage to their eyes.
And so just to confirm, when you first came inside and the lasers had been found, they did not work at that time?
That's correct. There was no batteries in them, so they had no power to be activated.
Does your office still have a drawing of the map that the Coast Guard apparently gave you to find to find where the lasers came from?
I don't know. If we do, I would imagine it would be entered into our evidence.com or our digital evidence, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Do you mind if I have a second, Your Honor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't believe I have any further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, did you have any redirect, Ms. Moberg?
No.
All right, any other witnesses?
Deputy John Leech.
Okay, you may step down also. Good afternoon, sir. Before you get seated there, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. And go ahead, Ms. Mogenberg.
Please state your name for the record
John Leech, Transfer County Sheriff's Office.
and spell your last name for the record, please.
Leach.
And you were one of a number of deputies that went into the home of Roger Buckin last December 12th, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was part of executing a search warrant?
Yes.
At some point while you were in the home, there were laser lights that were located, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us, you were in the home when those were located?
Yes.
Can you tell us where they were found?
They were located in a bag of trash in the kitchen area of the home.
And do you know if they were at the bottom, on top, where they were in that bag of trash?
I do not.
Okay. And were they working at the time?
They were without batteries when they were located. When a battery was inserted, they did emit light, yes.
Thank you. I have no additional questions, thank you.
Ms. Bosco?
You stated that you were inside of Mr. Buckin's house when the lasers were located,
Yes.
correct? And then you also stated that they were not working when they were initially pulled out of the trash, is that correct?
As I recall, yes.
And then at some point they started working again? Or
Yes.
started working? When did they start working?
The deputy that found them, I believe, inserted a battery that was also located to see if they would operate.
Okay, and were you there when that happened?
Yes.
And between finding the laser in the trash can and then inserting a battery into it, was there anything done to the lasers?
I don't recall.
And where did you find the batteries to put in the lasers?
I don't recall specifically. I believe the one battery was up on a shelf in the kitchen.
And was there anyone that ever saw Mr. Buchan with a laser outside of his house at any point in time?
I don't recall.
Did you interview neighbors of Mr. Buchan's?
Yes, Deputy Pomorsky and I did. The neighbor to the west.
Just one neighbor?
Correct, yes.
And had that neighbor ever seen Mr. Buchan outside with the laser?
Objection, Your Honor, that answer would call for your state.
Sustained.
Was that interview of the neighbor recorded on body camera footage?
Yes.
And do you recall that Mr. Buchan had mentioned seeing his neighbor outside with a laser the day prior?
If I may, can I consult the report?
Sure. I don't believe I have a copy of his report.
To clarify, I'm reviewing Deputy Pomorsky's report.
Okay.
Ma'am, could you restate the question just for clarity?
Do you recall Mr. Buchan telling you that he had seen his neighbor outside the night before with a green laser?
I don't recall specifically. Deputy Pomorsky's report states that Mr. Buchan had noticed the neighbor to the east with a green light in the yard the night before.
Okay, so please, I'd ask you not to read from the report and just testify to your own personal knowledge if that's possible.
Okay, I don't recall that specific comment, no.
Did you ever go and interview the neighbor next door?
Yes, Deputy Pomorsky and I did interview him.
And what did you observe during that interview?
Can you be more specific with what I observed?
Did Mr. Buchan's neighbor also have a green laser in his possession?
Yes,
And what did you observe with that laser?
I observed the laser to emit a sort of kaleidoscopic effect. The pattern, when I'm referring to the kaleidoscopic effect, I mean the pattern of numerous lights that came out of the end of the laser rather than one single beam of light.
Was there any ability to change the pattern that was coming out of the laser? Or was it just one single pattern?
Yes, as you twist the front, for lack of a better term, on a laser, it would change the shapes and patterns. However, it always displayed a pattern of lights, regardless of what setting it was on.
Do you recall what type of laser this was, the name or the brand?
I don't.
Is it possible that there could be a different top added to the laser that was found at Mr. Buchan's neighbor that would change the way it shines? Do we know that?
Objection, Your Honor, I think that calls for speculation or something outside this deputy's knowledge. If she wanted the neighbor here, he maybe could have testified to that, but
Ms. Bosco responds.
Well, I don't, if he's familiar with lasers and in this whole investigation may have come across information that would suggest that a different top to a laser can alter its.
Okay, officer, are you familiar with different types of lasers like the one you saw at Mr. Lazer's home? And
No.
whether they have different tops?
I have no specific knowledge regarding laser devices.
Did,
I'll move on.
did you? Okay.
Do you recall which deputy found the lasers?
I don't know.
Do you recall which deputies were involved in the search warrant?
Yes, let me review the report real quick. In addition to myself and Deputy Pomorski, deputies Bradley, King, and Deputy Harold were present with the addition of Sergeant Roberts.
And so you don't know who actually found the lasers?
I don't recall specifically.
And where were you in the house when they were found?
Down the hallway with Sergeant Roberts speaking to Mr. Buchan.
And did you go immediately go right to where they were?
I don't recall.
And did you or any of the other officers ever see Mr. Buchan outside of the house with a laser?
No,
Are you familiar with the location of where Mr. Buchan's house is?
can you be more specific?
Are you aware of the fact that there's a public parking lot directly behind Mr. Buchan's house?
No,
Was it ever investigated or looked into the possibility that there could be someone shining a light from the parking lot from behind his house? Was that ever investigated at all?
I don't recall.
And can you describe the different light colors, or if there were any colors of the lasers that were found in Mr. Buchan's house?
Red and green.
Did Mr. Buchan ever admit to shining the lasers at a helicopter?
No,
Did he ever admit to being outside with his laser at any point in time?
no.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Mogenberg?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down, officer.
No additional witnesses.
All right, Ms. Bosco, do you care to present any evidence today?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then, is there a motion, Ms. Mogenberg?
Your Honor, we would ask the court at this time to bind the defendant over on the original 2 counts. First aiming a beam of light at an enemy, a plane or train. In this case, there was testimony from the Coast Guard pilot, Derek Rockney, that they saw a green laser that was tracking the helicopter. They watched the laser go from the front yard to the backyard of the residence. The residence was then located by this inflatable snowman, and they went 4 houses to the east to verify which home or which residence this was occurring from. Officers then go to the home where they meet with Mr. Buchan, who is first not cooperative, not willing to give them his name. He then tells them that he doesn't have a green laser light, tells them later that he doesn't have a working green laser light, that any laser light that he has in the past is broken. And then we follow up with the search warrant where a green laser light in his kitchen is located in perfectly good working order. So again, the defendant intentionally aimed a beam of dedicated energy at the Coast Guard helicopter pilot, again, tracking it from front to back, and then did lie to police officers who came to his home investigating that about a pertinent piece of information here that he did not have a working green laser light. So again, we ask the court to bind the defendant over on counts 1 and 2. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bosco, response?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand the standard of the hearing here today, so I'll keep this brief. But just wanted to point out the fact that there are no witnesses and no evidence that Mr. Buchan was outside of his house on the night of December 12th, shining a laser at a helicopter intentionally by any means. When the police did arrive the first time, he did not cooperate, but when they came back with the search warrant, he most certainly did. When the lasers were pulled out of the trash can, they were in fact not working. The officers did have to put batteries in them, both of them testified to that. So as far as Mr. Buchan knew, the lasers were in fact not working. Again, there's no evidence other than a search warrant that was performed based on an opinion from someone 1,000 feet in the air as to where the laser was coming from, or that Mr. Buchan intentionally was shining a laser into a helicopter that evening. There is circumstantial evidence to show that Mr. Buchan owned a laser at one point. But we would ask you to dismiss the charges against him.
All right, thank you. So as to count 1, this is a statute the court has never dealt with before, but there's always a first time, and that is MCL 750.43A. It says a person shall not intentionally aim a beam of directed energy emitted from a directed energy device at an aircraft. Derek Rocky, a Coast Guard pilot, testified that he was operating his helicopter over Costco. It wasn't specifically testified that this occurred in Grand Traverse County, but I think this court can take judicial notice that Costco and Pine Drive are in Traverse City and Grand Traverse County. And at that time, when he was over the Costco, he noted the green light that was flashing on the top of the helicopter, the glass ceiling of the helicopter. They notified the appropriate authorities, the FAA, I think he said, and then also the light was shining directly in his eyes as he was attempting to operate the helicopter. Rocky also testified that the crew member with him was able to locate the source of the light as being 4 doors down from a large, well, I don't know about large, but an inflatable snowman. And that's how they were able to determine where the light was coming from. They actually were 800 to 1,000 feet over the home and were able to see the light being emitted by someone, although they couldn't identify specifically who that was, in part because of the light that was being emitted toward them. And Rocky also testified that he did seek treatment because of the laser having been shined in his eye. He described a dull eye pain from the whole incident. So there's been no argument that the device that was found in the defendant's garbage pail, a green laser, as it was described, is a beam or is capable of emitting a beam of directed energy from a directed energy device. And the statute specifically gives examples of those and says a laser, and that's exactly what the two officers described it as. That's what Rocky described the light beam as being, as a laser. There's no doubt that the requirement that the device be purposely aimed for the purpose of interfering with the operation of the aircraft has been met, in my mind, given that of all the places where the light was being directed, it was clearly being directed at the helicopter for some substantial period of time, enough to cause this pain in Rocky's eyes. And Rocky also described the light following the helicopter. He described the light tracking the aircraft as they were flying. I don't know what period of time that was, but that continued specifically between 7 and 7:10 p.m. The question in this case is obviously, was it in fact the defendant in this case? He was identified, the defendant was identified as the homeowner 4 doors down from where the snowman was located. And the defendant did in fact have a green laser in the garbage pail. Although it wasn't specifically testified that the defendant was the only one at home, I'm inferring that from the testimony that was presented today. The police dispatch was at 7:12 p.m. Now that's within a couple of minutes of when this whole incident was reported to have occurred between 7 and 7:10 p.m. So we know that the defendant was present at the location where it was testified the light was emitting, and there was in fact a green laser in the garbage there. The laser apparently wasn't working, but there were batteries that were found nearby. And as soon as the officers put the batteries back in, the laser started working. And this court will also infer that if someone were attempting to hide a laser in the they might also, as part of that, take the batteries out and try to hide those as well. Although Ms. Bosco makes a good point that the pilot and the crew member were 1,000 feet in the air, it's important to remember that these are the folks who do search and rescue missions. They're trying to pinpoint individuals out in the middle of the lake or wherever. And based on the testimony, this court finds very credible that these Coast Guard members were very precise in attempting to locate where that beam was coming from. They were contacting the appropriate authorities to deal with the situation, and it was important to them to determine exactly where the light was coming from. And so I do find there is sufficient evidence on this record to infer that the defendant was in fact the individual who was shining the light at the helicopter. As far as count 2 goes, it's also necessary for this court to find that there was that the defendant made false or misleading statements about a material fact. Obviously, whether or not the defendant was in possession of a green laser was a material fact. And in this case, it was testified that the defendant stated he did not have a working laser light. Now, I suppose that could be subject to different interpretations, that maybe just taking batteries out of a battery operated device makes it not a working laser light. But I think the ordinary interpretation of most people, especially in a crime investigation that the defendant knew about, he was told the officers were investigating aiming a beam of light at the helicopter. To say that it wasn't a working laser light was false and misleading, because all you had to do is put the batteries in, and most people wouldn't describe a laser as not working simply because batteries are removed. I would also find that the defendant stated he did not, well, I thought the testimony was the defendant stated he didn't own a laser at all at first, and then he said he had a working, did not have a working laser light. But that would be another statement that he made that was false and misleading, because those were found in the garbage. So based on the evidence today, I do find by a probable cause standard that the defendant is bound over to the circuit court. And before I sign the bind over order, Ms. Bosco, is there anything else that we should take up, bond or otherwise?
Your Honor, the condition of bond currently for Mr. Buchan is daily PBTs. This case does not involve alcohol. It's not a drinking related offense. He has completed them successfully since being arraigned. We would ask that instead of required daily PBTs, they just be discretionary.
Ms. Mogenberg?
Your Honor, well, we didn't bring out testimony about it today because it wasn't relevant for probable cause standards. The defendant did appear to be intoxicated when the officers went to his home that night, because he was intoxicated and when he allegedly committed this act. We would ask the court to maintain those PBTs. Obviously, if he continues to do well, especially throughout the holidays, we could readdress that in circuit court at a later date.
Did he, was there a PBT offer?
There was not, Your Honor.
I was going to say, Your Honor, there's no test that was done or that he was run through at the scene that would indicate that he was intoxicated. I mean, again, this is not a drinking related crime. He has not had any issues since being arraigned. And I just.
Is he using an at-home testing device right now?
No.
No, you're driving in every day?
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see, bond was set on what date? Looks like November 13th. So it's only been a couple of weeks since that bond condition was imposed. Being intoxicated might be a good explanation if it was the defendant shining the light as to why he might have done that. This was, even though nobody was hurt, this is a pretty serious situation. So I think I'm comfortable leaving the condition in place at this time. I suppose if we were more like 6 weeks or a couple months into this and there were no violations, I would consider reducing the testing, but you'll need to take that up with the circuit court. So the examination was held. The defendant is bound over to the circuit court to appear next on December 13th at 8 a.m. That is for the circuit court pre-trial conference, and bond will be continued. We'll go to the arraignment next, Ms. Bosco. Have you, you've no doubt informed your client of the nature of the charges and the maximum penalties, correct?
I have, Your Honor.
And is he asking for a formal reading of the charges?
No, Your Honor, we can waive a formal reading of the complaint. Mr. Buchan will stand mute and enter a plea of not guilty at this time.
Okay, defendant standing mute. I will enter a not guilty plea on your behalf, Mr. Buchan. And if there's nothing else, we're all set for this afternoon.
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.